Good morning, everybody. Well, we get to go through this song and dance again. It is the morning for me. It is the middle of the afternoon for my guest, Michael, who just went undefeated, 5-0 at the Nottingham Super Major with the Deathwatch Army of Renown. You've already been on the show once before for a similar topic where you were crushing it at I'm gonna mess up the name again.
Leicester City.
Leicester. I keep wanting to call it Leicester, and I know every time
Yeah.
it's wrong. But you went 4-1 there, but you've made some tweaks to your list. You've been digging in deep to all those tech choices that the AOR really gives us. So I can't wait to pick your brain. We already have one viewer, so don't forget you can ask any questions you want. That's why we do this stuff live. So you want to jump into your list, Mike?
Yeah, happy to.
Hey, man.
So the list for the Nottingham GT featured the infamous Primaris Chaplain on bike, exactly the same loadout as previously. Recitation of focus, and then the Buster charges, the reroll hits, the Beacon Angelis. This time, though, I did give him the ties that bind Warlord trait for the double obsec as a sort of extra CP cost. We then swapped out the Watchmaster for a Captain on bike with a Mastercrafted Lightning Claw and the Dominus Aegis. We'll come to why we've got the Dominus Aegis in a minute. And then we had our Primaris Librarian back in the mix.
Yeah.
The Judicia's gone.
The Librarian's a big change, right? Like, I know at the time Grey Knights were running pretty rampant, and so picking a Librarian meant that you couldn't get Abhor the Witch. But as we know in the new GT pack, mental interrogation is very good. And then also Grey Knights are not where they used to be. So
yeah, absolutely. And I actually found that the game I lost at Leicester, I probably wouldn't have lost if I had my Librarian. And as I described some of the games for Nottingham, the Librarian was definitely the MVP of the whole event.
that's awesome. Can't wait to hear more.
So we've got three of my traditional Fortis kill teams with lots of hammers in there, lots of shields, and then the bike, the Vanguard Veteran, the two Terminators, the Black Shield. Three of those, two Dominatus, one Malleus, and then we had an Indomitor Kill Team. So the 5 heavy intercessors with the Hellstorm, Assault 3 guns, 4 aggressors with the Bolt Storm and the frag launchers, and an Inceptor with assault bolters. The unit just, it was sort of a swap for the Hellblasters slash Stormbolter unit that I ran at Leicester.
I saw you got rid of my beloved ass blasters, but I cannot fault you for the sheer withering amount of firepower of dice that this unit puts out.
It's crazy. It was a unit that had been on my periphery and I'd been made aware of from other players of Deathwatch, so credit to anybody that I have chatted to who has thrown ideas out there. The Indomitor Kill Team.
Good morning, Jake. Jake is on. So.
Oh, excellent.
Or good afternoon, Jake.
Yeah, so the Indomitor Kill Team was in there. And then the final kill team was just a sort of utility unit. So it was just 5 veterans and then 4 Vanguard vets and a biker who naturally combat squad, just to sort of give me a bit of mobility and a trading option.
Yeah, those, that
was the list.
Yeah, Vanguard vets just have a projected threat that I didn't, it's hard to get around, especially with those storm shields, man, so.
Yeah.
How many shots does your Indomitor Kill Team, like, can you go through, so you get...
Yeah.
Can you go through all that?
Absolutely. So you get 15 from the heavy intercessors, and those are at 30-inch range. So that's quite useful for when you're... So usually the squad will teleport to the Chaplain with the Beacon Angelis. The Chaplain gives them +1 to hit with Recitation of Focus. And you have to deploy them near them at the start of the game in order to manage that.
Right.
So they're hitting on 2s, okay? Our bike captain's going to come over, so they're hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s. 15 from the heavy intercessors. Then you've got 24 from the Boltstorm gauntlets of the aggressors, and then you've got 6 more shots with a bit of extra AP from the Inceptor. So that's 45 bolt shots.
And there's the frag launchers, right?
46 frag launchers on top. So your average is probably about 60 shots.
Oh man!
And what I was doing, because I needed to make sure things died, because I don't want to spend 3 CP. So I spent 2 CP and I'd make them Imperial Fists. So all of their 6s to hit with their bolt weapons only would explode for additional hits, and then they'd ignore cover as well, which was really, really helpful.
Yeah, that's effectively an extra AP, which is no joke.
Yeah, and that would pop you up to about 70 to 75.
Oh, that's right, with the exploding 6s.
With the exploding 6s, yeah.
Yeah.
So, lethal.
Yeah, I mean, it's as close as we get to a 30-man Devil Gaunt block, you know?
Yeah.
It's a little more expensive, but, you know. Very cool. So, do you find that you miss the Judiciary? Because I've gone out of my way lately to shoehorn one into my lists, and you just like casually threw it away.
Well, the problem with our Army of Renown is it's so difficult to move units around, because we've got to take full kill teams with specialisms, right?
Yeah.
And so it was really tough putting 2 characters in there, having the Judiciary and the Librarian. So I had to make a hard decision, and I made the right one in the end.
Okay.
But the Judiciary is quite slow. It takes a while for him to affect the battle. Fight Last is extremely good, but in some cases he didn't really need it. He was a hero, but not the hero I needed.
Very cool. So, all right, let's dive into that Librarian choice then. You said he's the MVP. Even last time when I spoke to you, you were talking about picking one up because you missed the 5 Feel No Pain power. And then you also took, and that's fortified with Contempt. And you also took Premorphic Resonance so that you have the, was it 5s in Overwatch?
5s Overwatch.
You fight
plus
first.
1 hit in melee, and fight
plus
first.
1 hit in melee.
Yeah.
So pretty good.
So yeah, with the FAQ that dropped, that meant that my sergeant couldn't give the squad fight first with the Blood Angels Warlord trait. I knew I needed fight first in the list, and that might not seem an obvious choice to a lot of people. Fight last is better than fight first. For me, it's quite the opposite, just with the way that my army plays. And fight first was the MVP essentially across the whole event at Nottingham. The 5 Feel No Pain, amazing. It really dug the boots in when, let's say, maybe my storm shields weren't quite doing the business. I was failing a fair few. At least I'd have that shrug to rely on as well. But yeah, fight first came up handy in every single game.
That's awesome. Can't wait to talk more. Play Valiant would like to congratulate you on stomping another tournament.
Thank you.
And then, I mean, might as well get into this now. I've had a lot of people, once I posted up, like, I'm going to be interviewing Michael, I got so many messages on Discord and Facebook asking specifically, and I'm very curious too, about how you think Deathwatch is going to play with the new 2022 mission pack, because I bought mine at LVO, and I was reading through it one night, and I did not realize how many of those secondaries, the primary secondaries, the bonus primaries, whatever we're gonna call them, I didn't realize how many of those like go off immediately if you're OBSEC. And we all know how advantageous that is, because secondaries previously were like they completed at the start of your next turn. That gives your opponent a whole turn to go blow away that entire unit, right? And so none of us took those because we didn't want to hand an advantage to our opponent. And now it seems like every single one of these bonus points for primary requires you to do, if you're objective secured, they complete immediately. If you aren't, they complete at the start of your next command phase, a whole lot of them, or at the start of your movement phase or whatever, but that would give your opponent that whole turn. So how do you feel that Deathwatch AOR is going to play in that world?
Well, it's really interesting actually, because I've dived into the book a lot, these new missions. Being part of Vanguard Tactics, I sort of contribute to the course, so I write some of the lessons notes and stuff. And the key things that popped up for the missions is objective secured, as you said, troops. Another one is infiltrating, so forward deploying. And you know, we've got in the Army of Renown, we've got that in spades.
Yeah.
Like, and on the forward deploying note, I've got a 7-round Super Major coming up this weekend, and I have in fact dropped in a 10-man Spectrus.
So that's another question that I got. So let's peel this onion then. So tell me about the Spectrus Kill Team.
So the Spectrus Kill Team is actually quite basic. It's 5 infiltrators, 5 incursors. It's got the Helix Adept in there for the 10 points. I think it's worth it. And I've spent a CP to give the Warlord trait Lord of Deceit to the Sergeant. Because, so this is the redeploy Phobos units Warlord trait. And it's a nice way of getting around not having a Phobos character.
Yeah.
So it's nice to just stick it on the squad sergeant and
so
give me those options.
So it allows you to do some. All right, this is really cool. So you can forward deploy the Spectrus Kill Teams, which you probably combat squad, but keep close.
Yeah.
And if you keep them within 6 inches of the sergeant that has the Warlord trait, then before the game you get to redeploy them. So what you can do is, especially if the other army has infiltrating units, because of the way deployment works, you drop first and you can zone out like a huge portion of the midfield, because the infiltrators stop them from dropping within 12, not 9, but 12. So you can screen out the middle of the board, and then at the start of the game you can just pull them back. So or please. Or move them forward. Yep. It's some like head gamey stuff, and especially if they're playing an army that has a lot of forward deploying units, if you drop that infiltrator unit down, you have locked them out of like one of their army strengths. So that old John Lennon Ultramarine list where he had like 2 squads of incursors and one of the stealth bot suits that I can't remember the name of.
Invictus.
Yes, and those all want to forward deploy, but you can play with that. Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, yeah. Okay, so you go. No, I was gonna ask. So, I'm sorry. I'm a little like, my mind is blown by how much fun that is just in the deployment phase to like mess with your opponent. So how do you use them once the game actually starts?
So I've played a couple of games with the Spectrus guys, and I love them to bits. So you combat squad, and obviously you put 1 infiltrator in with 4 incursors, because then, as the kill team rules, you get your infiltrator buff from the whole unit. So you essentially have like 24 inches of screening across the board, and then of course you can do the redeploy. So if I'm going first, I'd probably evaluate whether I want to charge with them in the first turn, potentially. If your opponent maybe has taken raise the banners, it's really good to stick a unit on there, so in their first turn they can't actually raise banners on their objectives, which is a really nice way of digging into the secondaries. In the game I played, I redeployed them 9 from my opponent on 1 flank, and then I white scars. They advanced and charged, and picked up a couple of little units, and wrapped another unit, and it was just such a key
Man.
play straight away with an objective secured unit on an objective. And then, of course, the rest of the armies come in, these 3 Proteus kill teams with their hammers.
Yeah.
And your opponent's like, well, I've got to deal with these Proteus kill teams, but these little Spectrus guys that I can transhuman are just in their lines being annoying.
Oh, man. I was just thinking about how, like, you know, for Thick City, which I think we're going to see a little less of now, but Thick City, if you could get that off and just, like, punch in onto their main objectives, like you said, they have to now make a choice. Like, they have to get you off with their racks or whatever other shaft that they have, because they don't want to use their grotesques to go kill a Spectrus team.
No.
And you know, if you transhuman them, they're actually, they can take a beating. So yeah, you can. That's great. That's great. I love it. Star Strider, thank you for showing up. I'll be keeping these up as long as people agree to come on the show, so don't worry about that. So stepping back slightly, with the new rules, with the AOR effectively being our entire army is OBSEC minus, you know, 2 or 3 characters.
Yeah.
I mean, how are with us able to spend 2 CP to, like, still do an action and shoot, or there's a warlord trait which I don't think you took, optimize
priority.
Yeah, that's one that I've been looking at sticking on my list, because the idea of you know, a 10-man kill team not shooting or not doing something is really sad to me. So are you thinking you're gonna use command points to do that?
So it's an interesting one. I debated putting it in the list, and if I had the command points, I probably would. But I think I've sort of run out of viable ways to buff my army without spending too many command points. Obviously, Specialism, Extremist, that stratagem's 3 command points.
Yeah.
And then if I want Imperial Fists, the Indomitor Kill Team, that's a whole 5 out of my starting 8 with this new list. So it's a tough call to spend another CP on actions and shooting.
Yeah, you that's one of the things I notice is your new list has 8. The one that we just talked about has 9. I've been trying to keep as many command points in my builds as possible because of Specialism Extremists. So still very cool. You probably have a lot more command point discipline than I do, though, because I just want to, like, use the resource.
Well, I often find myself carried away using it on Storm Shield saves. Oh
yeah. As somebody who just ran a 5 Dreadnought Castle for Grey Knights at the LVO, I understand how swinging a 4-up is. All right, well, so you have a very positive outlook on Deathwatch and the new missions, right?
Yes, I think Deathwatch have a new breath of life. In fact, I would say all Space Marines have a new breath of life. I think with the new mission pack, one of the best units in the game is now going to be Infiltrators or Incursors, because not only do they forward deploy, their objective secured, and they're a troop's choice.
Yeah.
So you hit all the secondaries in one go.
I always thought Incursors were really cool, but folks would just buy, you know, they'd spend 100 points for the, you know, 5-man squad of Intercessors and just call it good. Yeah, but I think they're amazing. I mean, ignoring cover, right?
Yeah, and modifies the hit.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And they get an AP in combat. What more could you ask for?
Yeah.
And if you Deathwatch, you go Assault Doctrine turn 1, they're AP 2 in combat.
That's right, and you could advance and charge. Nice. Too bad Reavers still suck.
Yeah, I think Reavers need forward deploy, and then people will take them. Yeah. No, I would.
All right. Very cool. Well, let's get into your matchups. So you went into round 1, Drukhari, Thin City. So I use Thin City as what we used to see. So Rax, witches, incubi, raiders, what the scourge that they brought when they originally came out, not the scourge that they are now. So how'd it go?
Well, it was quite interesting, this one. He did have 3 thick city Talos.
Okay.
Was it Kronos?
So it's like
It might have been Kronos. I think
it's
it had
like
3 Kronos in there.
all right. So it's like healthy city.
Yeah.
It's not too thick, not too thin.
City.
Healthy.
Or maybe they might have been Technomancers, actually. So not quite thick city. Yeah, thin city with the Kronos that were dark Technomancers. So the extra damage on their flamers and the extra +1 to wound on them as well. Quite a popular choice for Drukhari players that aren't running thick city. And I played against a guy called Simon, who finished, I think, quite high up in the LGT, the big super major. So I was sort of like, okay, well, this is going to be a really good game.
Yeah, first game too.
Yeah, it was a tough one. And after Leicester, where I played about 4 of the top 20 players in the UK, I was like, oh no, is this going to continue here? It was a fantastic game, but I've played Drukhari Thin City, as you like to call it, so many times now with this list. I was actually talking to someone, and I've killed about 14 Drazars over the course of the season, which is hilarious. Like, there's so many. As the game went on, I did win 94-67. Secondaries wise, this was retrieval mission, I believe. I'd taken banners, stranglehold, and suffer not the alien to live. Suffer not the alien to live is such a good secondary.
It's so good. I mean, it's just gonna reward you for playing the game you want to play anyway, which is kill aliens. So
yeah, it's really good because so many of the alien races do use a lot of MSU units, lots of little units that you can kill.
We have a question in chat real quick. Martin is asking, does a kill team that didn't move but got beaconed still benefit from the Dark Angels chapter tactic? So if I remember right, any kind of teleportation deep strike, that counts as them having made a normal move. So no, it doesn't. Okay. Is the beacon special?
So the beacon, and so at Leicester, I tried to do this, and someone pointed out to me that actually if you move from reserve, or if you arrive from reserve, or the teleport homer, you count as having moved up to your normal move characteristic.
Right.
But you don't count as having made a normal move. So you count as moved, but not making a normal move. It's a little confusing.
Ah, okay. Yeah. So
even if you normal moved with the unit and then teleported, you don't count as having made a normal move because you arrived by reserves. It's a little weird.
It sounds like 40k in general, how confusing this whole thing is. So
yeah,
you count as having moved, small m, not made a normal move, capitalized N, capitalized M, which are effectively keywords. Yeah.
So what my original plan was with the Leicester list was that the Stormbolter unit would come out of reserve or teleport. They'd count as having made a normal move. I'd count them as stationary, and I'd be in Dark Angels chapter trait. Yeah. So then they could get their +1 to hit, and they'd have bolter discipline, so they could fire at 24 inches with their 40 shots. Unfortunately, you can't do that because it doesn't count as a normal move.
Well, there you go. I thought that would be a really quick question, but 40k rears its head again. All right, so there you go. So if you beacon, you do not count as having made a normal move, but you do count as having moved.
You do count as having moved, yeah.
Oh man.
And if so you can't use the stratagem to count as stationary because you didn't make a normal move, basically.
Okay. But the chapter tactic for Dark Angels still kicks off because you
only kicks off if you remain stationary and you
moved.
And you moved, and you can't use the stratagem to count as stationary because you didn't normal move. Yes.
Okay.
It's a weird one.
Yeah, so you do not keep the +1 to hit if you come in via deep strike or the beacon or a teleport homer or whatever else. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Martin. That's a great question. It's a much more complicated than I thought it would be. So sorry. Let's get back to Drukhari. So he was very good player. It was was this one of those games where like it was super super close and then it just kind of you pulled ahead, or
sort of. So with this one, he'd taken banners as well, and with this list, it's really quite a blunt instrument at times. So I sort of pushed on a flank where Jazar and the Succubus weren't, and he struggled to really get rid of me. I'd been Salamanders for a couple of turns.
Just gonna ask, what you were.
Yeah, so Salamanders, all the Witches, AP1 in combat, all the Racks, AP1 in combat. And some of the Talos attacks, I think, not the Talos, the Kronos attacks were AP1 as well. So they're just bouncing off 2-up saves. The Indomitor team, if you're being attacked by damage 1, you can spend a CP to have +1 to your save. So even they are on a 2-up save against those Racks, etc. And he struggled to push me off some of the objectives. So I got a big 15 the turn following, and he only got 5. Which was a big swing in the primary, and of course I'd taken down some banners because I've got so much objective secured, and Drukhari don't really play around with much in that sort of build. So in the end, 94-67. Big things that helped with the game: fight first on a unit, allowing me to interrupt even after being charged by fight last Archon or Tormentors, Incubi, that kind of thing, and that was huge. Allowed me to really trade with my units in sort of like the not traditional way of trading, where you've got like a cheap unit that goes in and kills a big unit. This sort of trading is where you've got a big unit and a bunch of little units charge it, but you kill a bunch of them before you die. So it's very interesting, but fight first really helped with the +1 to hit too.
Very cool. Yeah, +1 to hit, and then in Xenos you're gonna reroll 1s in melee too. So you're hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, pretty good. Yeah. Anything else stand out about that match at all? Was there any like funny plays or anything?
Not that I remember. I'm trying to remember what I spent the Specialism Extremis on. But I don't think I actually used it this game.
Wow, you were in control the whole time, huh?
Well, the thing is, the Indomitor Kill Team's got so many strength 4 shots into toughness 3 Drukhari. I don't really need the.
That's fair.
Because you get to reroll the 1s to wound as a Aquila, and you pick the right target. So.
It's not like you get to. It's not like you had to blast down some big like Exocrian or something, some like T8 horde monster or whatever.
No.
Very cool. All right, well, that's that, I guess. So I've never beaten Drukhari yet with any of my armies. So to hear you just nonchalantly be like, oh yeah, it was whatever, it was over. 94-67.
Well, that was my 13th Jazar kill.
Okay. Okay. Very cool. So round 2 was White Scars.
Yes. This was the hardest game of the event. So this game was really close. It was Vital Intelligence, which, as everybody knows, it can be quite a difficult mission for anybody that plays it. I tend to enjoy the mission a lot because I've got a lot of objectives secured, so I can really punish the hold 2, hold 3. However, this White Scars list was so fringe, I would never anticipate playing against it.
Okay, what did he have? Because I'm gonna look it up. If you don't.
The big kickers was the 15 Blade Guard that he had in the list. So 15 Blade Guard
Yeah.
with Khan and a special banner. So on the charge, he's got like +1 strength and +1 to wound. And of course, they're white scars, so they advance in charge. You can put them in Assault Doctrine, and all white scars, when in Assault Doctrine, get an extra damage. So these Blade Guard veterans are hitting me, and they're kicking out like 20 attacks at strength 5 with +1 to wound and damage 3 minus 4 AP,
Is
which
that
is
it?
not something that my kill teams can normally withstand.
Yeah. 3 damage too, so like Terminators are just getting shellacked, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a savage game. He went first, and he put a Vanguard veteran unit into to get the +1 into Assault Doctrine to get all the buffs, and they charged a kill team and killed maybe 3 or 4 members of the kill team, and we wiped them in return, which was a good-ish trade up for me. And then in my turn, I was white scars, so I actually got 2 kill teams into combat, and the Vanguard veteran unit into combat as well. I picked up, I think, nearly all of the company veterans that were sort of sitting around. There were some Devastators as well, and
Man.
yeah, it was just a really good pressure move to keep the primary in my favour. And I knew that I had to engage as soon as possible against the White Scars, because obviously when their entire army gets into Assault Doctrine, I have real problems, and I did as it came out towards round 3.
But this was a close game, right? Like you won 61-59.
Yeah, 61-59.
Yeah,
and it all came down to a single dice roll.
Beautiful.
So, yeah, this was a tough one.
What was that die roll?
Well, I'll come to that in a moment.
Okay.
But the Specialism Extremist I did use, and I picked up 5 Blade Guard veterans with it, with the Imperial Fists buff as well. It was worth the 5 CP, and that really, really helped thin them out. But they were just so fast and so killy, and they'd fall back and charge. It was a really tough one. On the primary, I got 5-0-5 for the first 3 turns.
Wow.
And he got 0-5-5 for the first 3 turns. Thankfully, I went second, so I was able to pick up the big 15. However, I made a mistake with a secondary, so I picked Grind Them Down, where no prisoners would have been a better option.
Mm-hmm.
But I was expecting to kill more units over the course of the games. I think I underestimated just how dangerous those Blade Guard were, and Vanguard vets.
That's one of the benefits of having these large kill teams, 10 men, and they're pretty tanky, generally speaking. Like, overall, our kill teams are pretty hard to actually kill. So Grind Them Down, especially into this MSU meta, is a good bet. Because they have to kill 10 models of yours to kill 1 unit, and you have to kill 5 of theirs. So it's a pretty good trade.
And in this case, he had 3 company vet units of just 2. So it seemed like a good choice.
3?
As it turned out.
That's a lot of bodyguard.
I only got 6. Yeah, I only got 6 from Grind Them Down. So in the end, it came down to whether I could get Grind in the last turn. And this required me to kill Khan. Okay. So this was really interesting. Khan previously had taken 2 wounds from my bike captain in combat. So he had 4 left. And I had the sergeant with the heavy hammer, the black shield with the hammer chainsword, and just a guy with a bolt gun and chainsword in the unit. These guys had barely survived an attack from Vanguard veterans, so I spent 1 CP to put them in the air to drop down again, which on a mission like Vital Intelligence is really good because they stood on an objective and then they claimed it in the next command phase.
Yep.
Anyway,
beautiful.
These were 3 of my last 5 models on the table. And they charged Khan, and he transhumaned. I think I got 8 Thunderhammer wounds. He failed 2. Command pointed 1 for a success. So he had 1 wound left. And then the normal guys' chainswords did nothing, but the black shield's chainsword attack wounded, and he failed his save, and Khan died to that 1 chainsword attack.
Oh man!
got me grind, and I won the game by 2 points.
That's amazing.
So yeah, it was a fantastic game. It was such a sport as well. Yeah, really really fun.
We have a question in chat from Petri. Sorry. He wants you to go into the importance of fight first and where it matters the most when you're like actually looking at a board. I know you went into this in our last interview too, but if you want to do it again, I don't mind. It's very cool.
Happy to go through it. So the main thing with fight first is not only is it potentially a free interrupt, but what it means you can interrupt fight last. So basically, you've got fight first on your unit. Your opponent makes that same unit fight last. The fight last and fight first cancel out, and you count as fighting in normal order. So when they charge you, they'll fight with one of their units, and then you will be eligible to interrupt with the stratagem because you've cancelled out their fight last. And what that does is it means that your opponent, if they're aware of how this works, and sometimes they might not have a choice anyway, they might make the conscious decision to not engage that unit because they don't have anything that can kill 10 Deathwatch before they get to interrupt, right? Like if we look at the build of some of these kill teams, the Indomitors in particular, that's 30 wounds of toughness 5, potential transhuman on them. There's not really a unit in the game that can kill them in one fight, right? So making them fight first means even if your opponent has fight last, I'm going to get to punch back with probably 4 aggressors at least before any other units can fight. And obviously when I interrupt, I'm going to hit the things that haven't fought yet, and therefore my unit survives, its objective secured, and I've probably got 15 points on the primary because of it. So it's quite literally clutch, especially against Drukhari.
That's very.
I hope that answers the question.
It does. It's one of those things. Like I've probably mentioned this 100 times now, but why 40k is so interesting to me is all the little plays, all the little bits of knowledge, all the metas within the metas, right? Like player plays terrain is its own meta, like in the game, right? Like which of secondaries are all a meta in the game? Which do you take against which faction on which map on which mission, right? All that stuff. And so this is just another one of those little things that, like, if you want to get really really good, you got to get into that minutia. You got to like really dig down and find these little because like you said, it doesn't seem that good by itself, but when you layer it on the top that we're pretty tanky and it's a 10-man and it's objective secured, and then you give it fight first, suddenly it's not an interesting target to put anything into. So they probably just hand you, like, I'll go kill something else. Also, it's got like a 5-up field of pain. It's just like, no one wants to go into that. That's very cool.
Yeah. And sometimes they have to stop you getting the 15 points. So what they end up doing, like in a later game, is putting a lot of units into you and then heavily paying a price for doing it.
Yeah. Man, that's so cool. I don't know why this just popped into my head. Can you use Specialism Extremis in Overwatch?
It's whenever you're chosen to shoot or fight.
Okay, but you're only going to hit on 5s with Fortified with Contempt, so it's probably not worth it. Yeah, okay.
Probably not worth it, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. You could definitely do it with Auspex Scan, which might be worth it.
With what?
There's a lot of Gene Stealer Cult coming out with Auspex Scan.
Yeah.
Lots of Gene Stealer Cult coming out with 10 aberrants. That's certainly something I'll be looking at.
Oh, is that a thing? Okay. Oh. That's nuts. All right. So really close game against White Scars. Yeah. Were you sweating? That seems like a really fun game, man.
Genuinely, I mean, there were points at which I said, "Look, I will humbly take the loss. You've played really well." But then we'd look at things and we'd just calculate the scores and be like, "Well, actually, that's a bit more than 6 inches out, so I wouldn't be able to maybe do that. Let's settle on this because that seems the most likely sort of where something might be or objective secured. He had some really cool plays with rights of war, getting the objective secured on his blade guard and such. And then we both finally agreed that if I could get grind, that would swing the game, but I'd have to kill Khan. But if Khan killed me, then he'd get a load more points, and I'd lose the game anyway. And it came down to that. And funnily enough, he actually thought he'd won for a brief moment because he'd forgotten that the Khan had taken 2 wounds earlier in the game, so he thought he still had 2 left.
Oh no!
And I just had to say, because I knew I'd won. He was like, "Oh, so I've won. So what's the score?" And I was like, "It's 61-59." Like, no, the Khan's still alive. And I'm like, in the nicest way possible.
Yeah.
Because it's such a. Sometimes it's really hard to lose a close game.
Yeah.
Harder than getting smashed, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
But I mean, those are the I've lost a game once where it came down to a movement phase and no, it came down to a consolidate. My buddy consolidated back onto a backfield objective, bottom of turn 5, got him 5 points, and I was like, "Well, you won by like 3. That's amazing." I'm like, I can't even be mad. You really thought that through. That's great. Star Strider is asking, can we use the anti-Tyranid strat on Gene Stealer Cult? And they do have the Tyranid keyword, but I think it also specifically says you get a bonus only against Synapse units, and I don't think GSC has any Synapse. They can't soup anymore with the new changes, so
they can actually soup.
They can.
So this is quite an interesting one. Okay. Yeah, so it's only within an army that you can't soup because it's specifically keyword locked. So you could have Gene Stealer Cult that were, let's say, Twisted Helix, and then Tyranids that were something else, but you couldn't have Gene Stealer Cult that are Twisted Helix, but also Pauper Princes.
Oh, okay. I got you.
So it's like the cults and cults keyword, they all have to be the same across your army. But you could have Hive Fleet and Cult, and they could be different. A bit like how the Drukhari one works with Cabals and
the Covens
and Witch Cults.
I'm happy to be wrong. That is a good thing to know.
Yeah. Think of Auspex Scan as our anti-Gene Stealer Cult stratagem, guys.
Okay, that's
it's sad we don't have one, but
yeah,
Auspex Scan I'll have to do.
But I do, I do know that strat specifically calls out Synapse units. So it's it doesn't work on Gaunts, it doesn't work on Gene Stealers, it doesn't work on hybrids, it doesn't work on aberrants.
No.
Yeah, it's all the stuff you really want to be killing in large swaths. It doesn't actually work on. It would work on neurothropes and things like that, but if you're shooting at his neurothropes, you've probably already won. All right. Round 3, the Blood Angels, which is pretty cool. You don't see them very often, and then now you've run into them after winning 2 games. You go into round 3, so he's obviously been winning as well, which is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this was another sort of fringe list that I'm like, okay, this is another potentially difficult game. Blood Angels can kick out 1 million attacks at AP 4 damage 2. Once again, I might not be equipped to deal with all of that. So the game plan was the same. Go in early, and make sure the trades benefited me. The good thing was this was battle lines, so there were 2 central objectives that were not central, but sort of on the halfway line, and none in the middle. So only 4 objectives in the game. And the primary score sort of tells the story of this one. So what I did was I moved forward and sat on the 2 objectives in the middle. The big Gravis kill team, I gave Fight First and the 5-up Film of Pain, and had the 5-up Indomitor Aegis guy with them as well. And then on the other flank, I had just one of my normal kill teams. He had a Whirlwind, so he could just make me fight last wherever on the board he wanted to. That was fine because so long as I held one of the objectives, I'd get 10 primary. As it happened, that forced him to only put a single unit into the Gravis kill team because otherwise I interrupt and I kill the other units that have charged it.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, the unit was Death Company with a lot of Thunderhammer attacks, and despite my transhuman, he managed to wound 11 times, and I failed every single 5 of them.
Oh no.
However,
But he had a
the
feel no
Fight
pain, right?
Pains
Yeah.
really helped, and I had 4 aggressors left at the end of it, which easily picked up all of the Death Company.
That's awesome.
But again, I held the objective.
So I have never played against Blood Angels that brought Death Company. So other than their pregame move, what else do they? What else can they do?
So turn 1, you could give them 5 to 6 attacks each by having them in the assault doctrine.
Holy crap!
And you
Okay.
can get them hitting on 2s potentially with +1 to hit, depending on the characters you've got around. So they're coming in pretty accurate with their weapons, with their hits and chapter master rerolls from Dante. And then of course they've all got thunder hammers. Well, not all of them. There's some chainswords in there as well, but
Sure.
lots of thunder hammer attacks. You're talking like 15 to 20 thunder hammer attacks. With +1 to wound as well, of course, because they're blood angels.
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah,
not bad.
Thank God I had transhuman. Didn't help that much though.
Yeah. Well, very cool. All right. So how did the rest of it go?
So I managed to get the big 15 turn 1 because he wasn't able to kill the Proteus kill team on the other side either. There was just one left, as often happens with the army. You sometimes get this one model left, but his objective secured, and I spent 2 CP to auto pass morale.
I was just gonna ask.
Yeah,
Yeah.
15 VP on the primary. He of course only got 5, and he actually only got 5 for turns 2, 3, and 4.
Oh wow.
Because I was sat on these objectives in the middle and he couldn't shift me off reliably. A big swing in the game. Those 4 aggressors moved forward the next turn and charged 10 Vanguard vets with lightning claws, and I think there were 6 storm shields in there as well. And I did this because the 4 aggressors aren't going to survive very long anyway.
Okay.
And he's going to probably kill them, so it was worth trying to trade upwards with these guys as the rest of my force moved up, and force him to deal with them. I actually wiped the squad. I don't know exactly how it happened. I wounded, I think it was 10 times, and he failed 6 out of 7 storm shield saves.
Wow.
And then the damage 2 just obliterated the squad. The last guy ran from morale.
Holy crap.
And we both stood there and were like, yeah, that's wow.
Yeah.
That's
So
almost set the game there.
So you threw him out because you're like, well, I want to get at least one fight phase out of them before they die horribly. So you just shoved them in there, and then they ended up with some MVP clutch move for you.
Yeah.
So they're power fists, right? So they're hitting on 4s. I mean, 3
So that
3s
turn
with.
I was Space Wolves.
Okay. So you.
Yeah.
All right. So you had +1 to hit from Premorphic Resonance.
Yep.
And then you were Space Wolves, so you were able to heroically intervene, not charge, or?
Well, the Space Wolves gives you +1 to hit on the first round of combat, as well as the
on the
heroic
first
intervention.
round. Okay. See, I need to learn all these things. This
with
is why I have
Premorphic
cheat
Resonance,
sheets.
They will hit on 2s.
Wow, with power swords?
With power fists, so
yeah.
really, really
power fists. I know what I meant.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a really good turn. I got 15, then 10, 10, 10 over the course of the game. He did get 10 in the last turn, but yeah, over the game, Retrieve Octarius data, he only got 4, just because his units were so they had to deal with what I was putting in front of them. And yeah, Stranglehold, I took the mission 1 for that one, and Grind, and I got 89 to 59, which was pretty solid score for that one.
Do you remember what your, like, one of the things that is so interesting to me about the AOR is like, what chapter tactics were you picking? I mean, I know it totally changes based on matchup and like what's
No.
going on, but like during this matchup against Blood Angels, do you remember exactly which chapter tactics you picked?
Yes, yes. I write them down so that
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah.
I know and my opponent knows. So it was Iron Hands turn 1, and that was because whilst one kill team had the 5-up Feel No Pain, I wanted the other one to have its maximum chances of survival, which it did by 1 man, so it was worth it. And with that 6-up Feel No Pain,
Cool.
so that worked like a treat. And then went on to Space Wolves, as I said, when those aggressors pushed forward. We then went Iron Hands again. So traditionally, I'll go Iron Hands if I'm expecting them to push me, or I might go for another defensive one. And then if I'm expecting their push to be pretty light, I'll pick an aggressive one. So with the Space Wolves, for example,
Okay.
and then the other time, turn 4, I went White Scars, and I just talked out turn 5. So I didn't write that one down.
Interesting. I don't know. Maybe it's my inexperience, my noobishness, like popping through. But like I think about, like I want a defensive one if I'm going second, like turn 1, right? So Raven Guard have got a lot of shooting or whatever, and then I'm thinking like, all right, turn 2, I'm gonna move everything as fast as I can, go White Scars, and just try to get like stuck in as soon as I possibly can. But you're like playing cagier than that. You're playing smarter than I am.
Yeah, the thing people pick up on the most is White Scars, and obviously it does stand out. So White Scars it's great to have that option because it really makes your opponent worry about turn 1 charges.
That's a good point.
So when you don't pick it, they've already deployed defensively, and then you sort of just get a little bit of leeway out of that. And then when you White Scars later on in the game, a crucial moment.
Yeah.
When they think they've tied you up or something, you just go, I'm White Scars now, so we're just going to fall back and charge.
That's another thing. I was going through my Deathwatch cheat sheet yesterday. I was just trying to make sure everything was actually up to date, and I had missed that. Like, everybody thinks about advanced and charge. And then I'm like, oh man, it's also, I can choose to fall back and charge. So you don't even need, theoretically, like a biker in all of your melee units, because you can just be like, I'm White Scars and I'm gonna fall back and charge this turn. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really, really good. And it's another reason. So the list has the biker captain in there with the damage 2 lightning claw. Another reason he's on the bike is so that he can just go 20 inches and kill a unit during that White Scars turn, which he did to the Succubus game 1.
Really? That's just like
really
just popped their turn 2 or something.
Yep, just drove straight through. Damage 2 lightning claw, 6 attacks, rerolling wounds, hit on 2s.
Is that the solid. So did you just throw him away, like trade straight up? Like, I don't need this bike captain, but I definitely need you to not have that Succubus.
Not quite. So the Succubus usually will engage you as soon as she can, because she's quite fast if you're playing against Drukhari. And she'll usually be the first one to fight because she's got Show Stealer, I think it's called, so she can consolidate out of combat 6 inches. So she'll jump 6 inches out of combat. So the following turn after she did that, the captain followed up to go round other enemy units and just killed her, because you can't escape a dude that moves 20 inches.
No, I just that's a cool thematic moment too, right? He's just like riding straight in there, like, I got your number.
He's actually one of my favorite models. He needs a new paint job, but he's decent enough. So it's the White Scar you'll recognize from Overkill, but he's got his lightning claws. He's sort of like dragging it across the ground.
Very cool.
You can imagine like the sparks.
Yeah, exactly.
The dust.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
so cool.
Very cool. So
Jose says he's been waiting for this interview. I'm very happy to have Michael on here again. Just so much knowledge to share. You are the #1 ranked Deathwatch player right now, right? Or no, you You
last
won
season,
it.
yes.
So you won it for the IATC. Oh man, look at that! How cool!
Yeah, there it is.
Congratulations, dude.
Yeah,
That's
all the way from the
incredible.
States. Thank you. Yeah, really, really proud of that.
That got there fast. It's like they knew and they just pre-shipped it.
Well, so Stephen Box was over there.
Oh right.
Managed to win Renaissance Man. He picked up my trophy as well.
Yeah.
With a couple of others.
I didn't. I don't want to go on a tangent, but I went out of my way at LVO to track down Steven and say hi. I don't think he recognized me because I had to tell him, you know, that I've had you and Jake on my show, and then he's like, "Oh yeah, hey, okay." Very nice dude. Him earning Renaissance Man does not surprise me in the least. He's a stand-up dude. So
yeah, it really is.
Yeah. Anything else that stands out? You won 89 to 59. Sounds like you just played the primary just so well in that, and that's what our army does.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I played Grey Knights, and right now, like, interceptors are so good, they're so fast, but they don't have OPSEC. So if I shove 2 interceptor squads onto your objective, kill 9 of your 10 dudes, you still own it.
Yeah,
that's such a powerful bonus. It's like understated almost.
It is, yeah. Like, it's interesting because I found sort of playing at more of these higher tables, etc. Not many people value objective secured quite as much as they should. It's such a powerful rule, and we're blessed with the Army of Renown to be able to run 50 ish models with objective secured.
I do wish that the update to the facts had like reduced the cost of specialisms or something for the AOR, because we're forced to take 2 or forced to take 1 for every kill team. It's it's like a whole nother model you're not bringing for every kill team, and that
it's certainly a tax. But I will say that in some cases the specialisms are really, really useful. So
I mean, Aquila.
Yeah, Aquila obviously to trigger
one.
that shoot anything to death with 70 odd bolter shots. But the 2 Dominatus, so I've got 2 Dominatus kill teams and a Malleus kill team. At the start of the game for Xenos Hunters, obviously you pick a battlefield role. Now your specialism only requires you to pick a battlefield role. It doesn't require the chapter tactic to actually be in use.
Right.
So even when you switch to a different chapter, you've already picked elites, let's say. So all of my Dominatus are going to be rerolling wounds against any elite choices. And if you've been following the last 2 games, 15 Blade Guard and 15 Van Vets in the White Scars one. And then in this one, Blood Angels, like, I don't know, 10 elites choices.
Yeah.
Being able to just go in there and reroll wounds with all of my hammers and chainswords and even bolt guns against those units really did add up over the course of the game.
I mean, Dominatus, I think, is just absolutely the second best choice because so many elites are so good, like Redemptor Dreadnoughts or whatever, you know, Sanguinary Guard, you know, all of that. The Virtus Praetors for Custodes, they're elites, right? Or are they fast attack? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So what's interesting about Custodes is and Orcs as well is that some of their best units are fast attack. So I'd have to rely on my Indomitor Kill Team to punish those units.
Punish, nice. So Jose does have a mix of Primaris and Firstborn. He primarily has an Indomitor Kill Team and a Primaris Captain on bike and a Primaris Librarian. Everything else is Proteus Kill Teams or a Captain on bike. So all of those are Firstborn.
Yeah, I mean that sounds very similar to my list.
Well, no, I mean he's he was asking what your
Oh, I see. Right.
what your
Okay.
list
Yeah.
was, so that's why. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
I
quite
think he
similar.
joined late. I just wanted to answer that real quick. So he's got a combo because that's the most like the Proteus Kill Team. I remember folks were kind of poo-pooing it when Deathwatch book hit. And I know we're better now with the AOR, but like I was like, no, the Primaris or the Proteus Kill Team seems the coolest because you have the most options, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's the only real choice you've got kill teams wise that actually does anything in combat.
yeah.
And the best way to take an objective, guys,
Uh
is in melee combat,
yeah.
especially if you're obsec.
It's true. So little bit of an LVO tangent that actually ties into this, but I was watching the friendly tournament on Sunday after I was knocked out, and there was a Deathwatch player there who recognized me, and he said, "Hey, can you ask Michael to ask GW?" Which is like the most hilarious thing. But anyway, because like you're gonna change their mind, right? Why can we not take in the Fortis Kill Team Blade Guards and Assault Intercessors instead of normal Intercessors? I think that'd be a cool change, but also like we just learned in your in your matchup, 15 OBSEC Blade Guard running around.
It might be a bit much.
Yeah, I don't know if GW is ready for that.
No, probably not. Yeah, I mean, I am a previewer with Vanguard Tactics, but I'm not a play tester or anything.
Right.
I certainly don't have any sway over GW.
I don't think anyone
the
does.
The main thing I'd ask them is to give Reavers forward deploy and make our veteran bikers core. Please, GW.
Like the
just our biker units, like
oh wow, I didn't notice
they're not
that.
core. Yeah.
I did not notice that. Okay. Thank you for for enlightening me on what we don't have. I do wish I could take suppressors in a Fortis Kill Team just
that
because
would be cool.
I just think they're a neat unit. I don't know if that would be good at all, but like I like them. So
I certainly think Assault Intercessors instead of Intercessors should be an option for the Fortis Kill Team.
Yeah, that'd be cool too.
I definitely consider it. Like, you know, you can get a lot of attacks out of them.
Just
it'd be really nice for Primaris focused Deathwatch players as well to have sort of combat threat.
Yeah, that's a lot of chainsword attacks. All right, round 4, Drukhari.
Yeah, Drukhari again! Hooray!
This time,
at this point, I'm sick of Drukhari. I'll tell you.
Well, if I remember right from looking at this list, this is the true like pretty standard thick city list. You got a bunch of grotesques, bunch of taluses, you got some Cronus, a homunculus, right?
So this one, it didn't have grotesque. This was a bit of a weird Drukhari list.
Okay. Man, I am
did have
not
3
on the ball,
individual thick city talos, and the homunculus, and of course the usual characters that everybody hates. But I think it was Poison Tongue, which was really interesting. So that's the poison wounds on a 3-up, and they get the redeploy ability as well.
Yeah, we're seeing that a lot with just for the redeploy more than anything else. Like, is it right? Like the redeploy is.
Yeah.
I mean, I play Grey Knights. I get to redeploy 3 core units most games, and it's clutch. At least for me as a new player, because it lets me make up for my deployment mistakes.
Yeah, it was quite interesting. I think it was an interesting choice, and it clearly done so well because poison is good into higher toughness things. You imagine like Crusher Stampede, or the mirror with Thick City, and even against my Gravis Kill Team, for example, just his poison was wounding on 3s was really, really nice for him. He had a Trueborn unit in there, which is usually always something that gives me concern in the Drukhari matchup. And
they're there with their Dark Lances, right? Like they're
Dark Lances, Blasters.
Yeah, they're an anti-tank threat.
Yeah, but anti-tank threats are pretty good.
Oh yeah. No,
Space Marine.
yeah, I wasn't trying to say that in a dismissive way. I was just pointing out that the role in their list is anti-tank.
Yeah,
but
they're really, really good. Just hitting on twos. Yeah, really good.
Yeah, just hitting on twos.
They just hit on twos forever.
That's hilarious.
But the Archon didn't have fight last, which was another interesting, weird twist. And Drazar wasn't the Warlord, so didn't have rerolls to hit and wound, which I think personally is a mistake from my experience of playing against Drukhari rather than playing with them. So in this one, I went first, and I failed Recitation of Focus for the 2+ to hit on my Indomitor Kill Team, which was a bit of a shame because it would have made a hilarious turn one. I went with it anyway, and I went Imperial Fists with that unit over the Indomitor Kill Team. I teleported them, spent the 3 CP, and I fired split fire into 3 different raiders. If I'd had the 2 up, I would have killed all 3. As it was, I killed the Trueborn one, brought 1 to 1 wound and another 1 to 3 wounds.
No!
But it was very, very swingy with some of the save rolls. And of course, he tried to lightning fast, but I spent a further CP to ignore modifiers. I really wanted those boats gone.
If you killed those raiders turn 1 with 1 team, like, you could just walk away. You have the moral victory at that point, right? Like, that's absurd. That's awesome.
The averages are that I should have, because I should have got that 2 up off with the chaplain, but as it was, I didn't.
And this is why they're increasing the points of the chaplain.
Yeah.
It's so good.
He went first in this one, so he moved to a sort of staging position so that he could fight for some of these objectives later on without giving me too easy a shot or turn 1 charge. I went White Scars to make sure that he did so. So obviously I picked White Scars at the start of the battle round. I'm like, if you move towards these objectives, I'm going to run and charge at you. So he played it safe, which was a good idea, but obviously it meant that in his next turn he was only going to get 5 primary because he wasn't on any objectives except his home one. And then in my turn, I charged 2 Talos with a kill team. I put 20 Thunderhammers into them. I didn't kill either one because I rolled shockingly.
That is it
happens.
Right?
It happens.
Yeah. I had a few psychic phases. My round 2 at LVO were like all I could roll was 3s. It's like, okay, well, you gotta laugh. There's nothing else you can do.
Yeah,
like it is a dice game.
Thankfully, the way the Talos were kitted out, they didn't kill anyone. I think they killed 1 model from the unit. Because they're AP2 and Terminator obviously has a 1-up save, so I got 3-up saves against it.
Yeah.
And I had a 5-up for a pain. Then his turn, and this was the critical bit, and where fight first comes in. So
cool.
Drazar, the Succubus, a unit of Incubi, another unit of Incubi, and a Venom, all charged that 1 unit on the middle objective. And I was like, okay. Oh, and a Talos, the 3rd Talos.
So like half of his army is going into
he's going into this unit.
The Gravis, right?
So this was a Proteus Kill Team.
Okay.
One of the Proteus Kill Teams.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that was an interesting move. I think maybe the right move, just to try and get me off the primary. Otherwise, he was going to really drag behind.
Mm-hmm.
He'd only got 5, you see, in his turn, and I was assured to get at least 10, even if this unit died.
Mm-hmm.
As it happened, the unit did die. However, the Succubus went first, as she usually does, so that she can show Stealer away from the combat with her ability. She killed, I think, 3 guys. Then I interrupted and I killed all 10 Incubi.
Oh, it was 1 unit of 10 or 2 of 5?
2 of 5.
Oh,
2
okay.
of 5.
So you split really well. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I had a lot of attacks, to be fair, as well.
Yeah. And you could... Did you Specialism Extremis too? Just in case, or no? Oh, right. Everything's T3. That's right.
Yeah, it wasn't
Except
really
Drazar.
necessary, and the team was a Dominatus kill team, so I was re-rolling all my wounds anyway
Okay.
against them.
Very
They're an
cool.
elite's choice.
Yeah.
So I'd lost the kill team eventually to Drazar, etc., but I had picked up 10 Incubi, which do tend to change the flow of the game against Deathwatch. I'm sure any of you who've played against Drukhari with Deathwatch, Incubi are probably your bane, alongside Drazar and the Succubus
And the
the Arthur.
Trueborn.
And Trueborn, yeah. So I was happy with that trade, even if points-wise it wasn't the best. It did set me up to kill Drazar in the following turn with another Proteus kill team that just followed up, really, and picked up, I think, a Talos. The Gravis kill team was relatively untouched and killed a bunch of stuff. This is the point where I start forgetting things. So we were White Scars turn 1. We went into Salamander's turn 2 because he had to deal with my aggressors and the other unit, and I wanted to ignore the AP1 of all of the racks and witches that went in.
What a
and
clutch!
He had
yeah.
Venom cannons too, which were AP1. So yeah, that was strong. Yeah, so we stood there. We lost a few. The Archon was particularly good in that fight, but we held on. We got 10 primary, and then the turn after I went Iron Hands for the Feel No Pain, just a little bit more resilience, which is nice. And then the last turn 4 went for Salamanders again, just to hammer in and get some good saves against the Venom cannons on the the Splinter cannons, not Venom cannons, Splinter cannons on the Venoms. Yeah, and then in my last turn, I only got 5 primary, but my opponent had only got 5 in his first 2 turns, then 10, then 5 in his last turn as well. And what I spent most of my last turn doing, which is something a lot of people might miss, is preventing my opponent jumping on all the objectives at the end, because I'd gone first. Oh, no, he'd gone first. He'd gone first. Never mind. That tactic was in a different game.
Gotcha.
But always good to bear in mind, if you're going first, you need to stop him getting loads of primary at the end.
Yeah.
Stranglehold, Suffer Not the Alien, priority targets. This was priority target.
Yeah. Everybody takes priority target. It's like a guaranteed 15 points.
And this game was really close, actually. I haven't got his score down here, Rick. I don't know if you've got that on the...
I do. You won 85 to 74. So
yeah,
you only won by 11 points.
Yeah. So then that was all in the primary, really.
Yeah. Which I mean, yeah, you gotta play the mission, right? Like, and stop them from playing the mission. yeah. Very cool.
And that was my 14th Drazar kill of the season.
Beautiful. 14 in 1 year too. That's so funny. So this is just a 9th.
All of you or Deathwatch players that have suffered at his hands.
Thank you. Yeah. I gotta get more reps with my Deathwatch in. Now that LVO's over, I'll probably start playing my Deathwatch more. I love the models. I love the army. I love how many tricks they have. I love how versatile everything is. I don't want to play a gotcha army, but like it is pretty funny when you remind folks like, yes, I can advance and charge. Not that I will, but I can. And then they kind of change the way that they're thinking, or it's like, oh yeah, I can get a 5 feel no pain towards mortals. Might not, but I can. Very cool.
Yeah, I mean, you got to ask the right questions, and a lot of people did. One of the key ones is, how far does one of these Proteus kill teams move? And then when I tell them that it's about 11 inches, they're like, what? How do they move 11 inches? But you just string out the biker and the Vanguard vet, maintain coherency, and that's about 11 inches, because a biker is huge.
Yeah, it's pretty funny when you consider that every model maintains its normal move characteristics. So yeah, you can string them out quite a bit.
Yeah.
And then you can get a crazy charge off. And the guy in the back who's got that heavy thunder hammer can pile in. So get it
Yeah.
more
If
movement.
you've got that
Yeah.
Chaplain Litany for +3 to your piling and consolidate, and +2 charge, then it's
Yeah, you
really quite
can.
easy to get the guys in the back in there.
Yep. You can
And
move
if you
so
maneuver the
fast.
bike correctly, you get your bike within half an inch of the enemy. Because he's got such a long base, you can get within half an inch of your biker and fight an enemy that's potentially about 3 inches away.
Yep.
If you play it right.
It's so much fun. Okay. So round 4, Drukhari 85 to 74. So a close-ish game, like that's cool. Not a blowout, not at all.
No.
Not like your round 5, which was against Custodes.
Yeah, this was pretty savage.
I mean, this is your like round 5 too. So all of these people, generally speaking, are having as good of a day as you are. They're all undefeated up to when you fight them, and then they get bopped. But
yeah, so this was old Custodes rules.
oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah, but that did cause a few issues because obviously that meant they had a lot of 3-up invuns basically everywhere. And it also meant that, they had the -1 strength thing they could use on anything. But Shadow Keepers wise, they didn't have the -1 attack, which obviously I was thankful for because that's quite irritating. So he went second. He had a Codexes assassin in there, and the Codexes assassin for 2 CP will make anything within 3 inches fight last. So that's why it's traditionally included with some lists that don't have access to fight last. So I just needed to be aware of that. Really, that was one of the key bits. This was Sweep and Clear, which again, usually a very good mission for Deathwatch. I took Oath, Stranglehold, and Direct Assault, which are relatively simple in this one. They're probably the easiest 3 secondaries to score on this mission setup. Yeah, so turn 1, I went White Scars. I managed to get 1 Proteus Kill Team into his lines, but the big play here, which really set the tone of the game, the Biker Chaplain advanced after giving +1 to hit to the Indomitor Kill Team. The Kill Team teleported to the Chaplain Biker, got a bead on 2 Custodes Dreadnoughts, and dropped both of them with Specialism Extremis.
Oh man.
And he was like, "Oh wow."
Like,
I like that. You're making me want to play Deathwatch.
Yeah, I mean that's were they Telemons or the smaller one that I can never remember the name of?
There were no Telemons in this particular list.
Contemptors. Okay.
Otherwise, I would have just fired the whole unit at the Telemon.
Yeah, I was gonna say you picked up 2 Telemons. That's amazing. But yeah, so I mean 2 Contemptors is still very good. Like
yes. Yeah.
Do the Custodes Contemptors have a 2-up armor save? Or are they 3-up like everyone
yes,
else?
they did. They had 2-up armor saves.
That's kind of what I thought.
And then the 6-up Villain of Pain as well.
Yeah, I just assume that whole army has 2-ups everywhere.
Yeah, pretty much does. Yeah.
Other than the Blade Wizard now.
Yeah. So the Proteus Kill Team went in. Actually, didn't kill anything. They bounced off the 3-up invuns and he turned off my rerolls. However, because he turned off my rerolls, I put a couple of hammers into the Codexes that I let intervene. Because frankly, even if he'd made me fight last, that uses up CP. And what I really want my opponents to do is use up all their CP so they can't interrupt in later turns. Because that's another key aspect to the game.
Nice.
I put a random damage 4 Thunderhammer into the Codexes. I managed to hit and do 4 wounds to him, which was really good because later on I managed to pick him up really quite easily during the course of the game for a cheeky oath point.
Kill a character.
As the game went on, it became more and more obvious what the outcome would be. Because it was sticky objectives, I was obviously able to move off mine. It also meant he had to have a whole unit on his objectives till his next command phase. So what I did is I targeted specifically any objectives that he'd just moved on so that I could prevent him from moving off them in his next turn and keep his forces sort of dispersed. It worked really well. Obviously, the entire army's obsec, so I only have to get a few guys on there and I take the objective. as it happened, he failed enough 3-up invuns for me to take the game. And yeah, it was a 100-52.
It's a pretty big blowout.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was brutal.
We have a bunch of viewers in here. I'd like to remind everybody we do this live so that you can ask us questions. So please do. Just throw it right into chat, and we'll answer your questions.
Yep.
So I mean, have you played into the new Custodes at all with this army? Or your new version of this army, I guess.
I don't think I did. So we spent a bit of time preparing for LVO, and I was obviously with the team helping Stephen test his Custodes and Ben Jones test his Drukhari. But I wasn't using the Deathwatch because that's not really a staple list. In it's not really something they'd expect to face at LVO.
Yeah.
So I kind of ran just sort of other sort of traditional lists to see how it would go. I feel like against the new Custodes, if you build a combat orientated army like mine, I think you do have play. Shadow Keepers is the most difficult version of Custodes for my list in particular because of the -1 attack if you're in engagement range. Thankfully, a lot of people go in Emperor's Chosen, so that's not an issue.
Which
what you
sucks for my Grey Knights.
So what you do is you save your CP for your Specialism Extremists, and you probably shoot a unit of bikes off the board with the Indomitor Kill Team, and it probably will take the entire unit.
Yeah, I see 6-man.
The averages on that one.
I see lots of 6-man Praetor bikes, so yeah, I mean, and if you can kill that, they're like what, almost 100 points or just over 100 points a bike.
I think they're about 85.
Yeah, I mean, so if you kill 6 of them, it's worth the trade.
I wouldn't expect to kill 6 because we're about 70 shots at AP1, so they'd have a 3-up save, so they'd fail about 20 to 30 of them.
Okay, so you kill 4 bikes.
4, 5, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, still reducing it. Good. Yeah, reducing that bike squad from 6 to 1 is amazing.
Absolutely. And then when you do go in with one of these hammer kill teams, you can just use Specialism Extremists again, and you don't have to worry about transhuman. You don't have to worry about them turning off your rerolls, provided you stack +1 to hit buffs.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a lot of damage 3 and damage 4. I think the other thing about Custodes in this new matchup is the counters 2 models for objective secured.
Yeah.
That really gives them a buff against a lot of armies, but we have so much objective secured, and they are the reason I've kept the double objective secured warlord trait on my chaplain. Is if I do face them, I need to be able to take those objectives off them. Should be able to.
That's so awesome. So like they move up a 3-man squad of guard, and they're like, I'm 6 models, and then you go, I'm 20 models.
Yep.
That's incredible. Very cool. So I also want to ask you, how do you? I mean, I'm assuming you're playing in you're practicing into Crusher Stampede as well. How? I mean, -1 damage. Like I feel like we actually do pretty well into Crusher as Deathwatch AOR because a lot of those monsters are synapse, so you can use the stratagem against them.
It's an interesting one. I haven't really had a lot of time because I've been working so hard with the Vanguard Tactics Academy, but I haven't played Crusher Stampede yet, and I really, really want to, because not only is it probably a really good game, but it's also epic because you're Deathwatch and you're killing these giant alien bugs, right?
Yeah.
How awesome is that? And you just the being able to imagine a Black Shield going in and smacking a Carnifex in the face with a hammer is awesome.
Yes.
In terms of the rules, I looked at whether I could drop a Harridan with the Indomitor Kill Team and Specialism Extremists, You about 32 wounds to it, so it's got 2 left. So don't shoot a Harridan with your Indomitor Kill Team guys and Specialism Extremists. It's not worth it. But you can probably drop 2 Dharmacarans, which obviously swings the game pretty heavily.
Oh my
Your bolt
gosh.
guns. Yeah, I think even with the -1 damage, because of all the Thunder Hammers, with the damage 4 ones, the damage 3,
Yeah.
and we're actually quite hard for them to kill, because we've got that 4 up invuln in a lot of the places, and the Indomitor Kill Team can transhuman. So,
Yeah.
and of course we've got a lot of obsec, and with double obsec, even if they have an 18 wound model with obsec with their ability, we can have a 20 obsec with a 10-man unit.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's good. Well, we'll see if Crusher sticks around after the new Codex drops. I have no idea what's in that thing, but these White Dwarf and Warzone supplements have definitely kept that 8th edition Nid book rolling. So
yeah,
I hope that they made them as strong as they are in regards to what their 9th edition rules are going to look like. So any other like particularly difficult matchups that you have, or
so I've got a 7-round Super Major coming up. They are using the new Tau book, and of course this will be the first tournament I've been to that has the new Genestealer Cult and new Custodes in it. So I'm really keen to see how the Shadowkeeper matchup turns out. I'm also really interested to see how the Genestealer Cult turns out, and of course the Tau. I have fought the new Tau once, and I have beaten them, but I think it takes a bit of sort of patience and a real game plan in order to do so, because they are extremely powerful. Genestealer Cult, I'm hoping that my Spectrus Kill Team and the 24-inch no deep strike bubble really puts them on edge during the game. And then, of course, our Spec Scan Specialism Extremists on that Indomitor Kill Team at the front somewhere might just prove both hilarious and effective.
So when they pop out of a blip, that counts as deep striking, and you can use Spec Scan or not?
Not the blips.
Okay.
But they will count for when they innately come in from ambush.
Right.
So when they deep strike, you'll be able to do it.
I just thought if it worked on the blips, that would be hilarious, because you could pressure you could pressure them. Like, I don't know what's in that blip, but now I can shoot at it in your turn. Very cool. Well, I mean, I don't see any more questions. You've run through everything. I know that you're working closely with Vanguard Tactics. You've already mentioned them before. You're on their stream quite often. You guys should definitely check that out if you have the time. Not only are they trying to make people better at the game, but they're trying to make the game better, meaning like they're really focusing on friendly competitive matchups, like having a good game, not necessarily just winning. So they've got great outlook on that. So if you need some coaching or just want to drop in on there, is it every Tuesday you have a game on YouTube, or is it every Wednesday?
We've got a stream game, happens every Monday. Drop in, watch that. Pop us a message in the chat. They're both a mix of sort of entertainment and education. We had the Tau one the other day against Thousand Suns, which was a really, really interesting game. And we've had some with the Genestealer Cult and the Custodes. So if you want to see these armies played by players that maybe have sort of more understanding of the foundations of the game and how to really make the most out of movement, etc., then these games are definitely worth a watch. I think we had Custodes versus Genestealers, and we had Grey Knights versus Genestealer Cult. All amazing games, and definitely worth checking out. We do now actually have the doors open for the academy, so you can now sort of secure your place. The course is open on the 14th of Feb. There's different sort of packages you can go with obviously different levels of sort of access to coaches more directly. But basically, what it is, it's an online course that boosts your skills in the game, and there's other stuff about like mental health and taking time to enjoy aspects of the hobby. But the main focus is on fundamentals, maybe little advanced tricks that you might have missed, stuff like my fights first. I myself have definitely benefited greatly from the academy, as you can clearly see. We had another student finish as top ITC for Azayani Craft Worlds.
Wow,
which was amazing.
Yeah.
So
who are going to be
big one for him.
Who are going to be a nightmare.
Yes,
when
yes,
they come out. Oh my gosh.
But yeah, guys, if you want to make the most out of the time you already spend in the hobby, maybe you want to keep using the units you've got without having to jump on the latest hotness, and just save yourself time and money by investing in this. Over the long term, you're going to pick up some of these cheeky abilities with objective secured, double obsec, nailing the primary, never making mistakes with your secondaries, that kind of thing.
Never making
mistakes.
Check
that out, guys.
Yeah. I know that right now, especially after LVO, I also write down as much as I can during my matchups, and a note I consistently have on there is that I am ass at deployment. It is the weakest part of my entire game, and at least 2 games I could have either won or gotten much closer if I deployed better, but I did not. So
actually, that is one of our earlier modules. So a new module drops every week. You don't have the whole course straight away because obviously that's too much information, right? We've got like army list is I think the first module in there, and that's literally everything to do with army lists. Then we've got game plan, which covers like all the new missions, and that one's absolutely fantastic. And then like how to make sure you hold objectives, and then we've got secondaries and deployment, etc. It goes on, but yeah, really, really good stuff in there. It's really helped me too.
Here's CJ, and he says he wants to buy a codex just on deployment. like an 80 or 90 page book just on the like nuances of deployment and having a plan. Yeah. So I think that this is fantastic. Not only again are you guys really like trying to increase people's skill level, but the fact that you're trying to create a welcoming, open, awesome community who
that's the biggest thing.
Like you can be tooth and nail fighting for every goddamn point, and still have a smile and be cracking jokes and be having a fun time. This should not.
Yeah.
If any hobby ever starts to feel like a job, you should start.
Exactly.
You just start reconsidering whether or not that is the hobby for you.
Yeah. And we've got a whole Discord community, and there's sort of like live lessons every week. Like we'll give you an army and you have to pick secondaries, all sorts of stuff like that. People are playing TTS games with people that are on a different side of the world.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it's all about community in the end, and playing 40k the right way.
Very cool. Well, I don't see any more questions. I think we've given folks a lot of time. You've answered a ton of questions. If you're just joining us now, we've gone over his 5 rounds, how he feels about Deathwatch into the new 2022 mission pack, how he feels into all the new, at least the ones that we are, the codexes that we know are actually coming up. Big portion on fight first and why he thinks it's so important that he chose to bring a librarian in a meta that still has Grey Knights everywhere. Specialism choices, the whole 9. So if you are just joining us, this has been an excellent interview. It's data dense, but I think it was totally worth it. Michael, thank you so much again for
it's an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, for taking the time. You are a wonderful guest. I hope I'm a wonderful host, and I know that the Deathwatch community just absolutely, it's like drinking from a fire hose, but I think we very much love these. So thank you very much. Good luck with Vanguard Tactics. good luck this weekend with your
Thank you.
7-round Super Major.
Yeah.
Is that a guaranteed 7 games, just regardless?
Yes.
Woo.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. At LVO, if you played the Shadow round, you had to play 10 games. I played 6, and like my like shoulders hurt from like bending over too much, so I can't imagine 10 games, man. But I will talk to you later. If anybody has any other questions, hit me up. I can reach out to Michael. He's been answering questions on the previous interview as well. Not that you should plan on him doing that, but he might. And again, like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz, and don't forget to